Hello and welcome into another live edition of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin. We'll be riding solo on this one. Unfortunately, won't be joined by my co-host Jimmy or DK, but I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about the Ravens schedule being dropped yesterday. Wasn't able to get out here yesterday. Had my 14-year wedding anniversary, so had to take care of business. And celebrate that milestone. But I'm back with you guys here now. And, man, there's a lot to talk about. Of course, we know we already knew who the opponents would be, both home and away, but didn't know exactly when, how they would line up, how many the timing of each game. How many are going to be in prime time? You know, we didn't know all those details, but we certainly know them now. So I'm going to put it up on the screen and we can kind of start going through it. What's going on, King Blaze? Appreciate you coming out. Appreciate all who joined. Be definitely going to be doing more talking, interacting with the chat now that since I am alone for this one. So I appreciate you guys, all your comments in the chat. But let's throw this up on the screen now and kind of start getting into it. Obviously, the first thing that jumps to mind is the Ravens have a bit of a chance at some revenge. Going up to Buffalo for their week 1 matchup, September the 7th, Sunday night football. Man, what a way to get the season kicked off. And I don't think anyone was shocked by this, right? Like, obviously, 2 teams that competing for the Super Bowl. The Ravens lost in Buffalo last year in the division round, knocking them out of the playoffs. And this perfect way to start the new season, right? And, some people say, wow, that's tough for the Ravens. And last year they started on the road. They played Kansas City, and now this year on the road in Buffalo. So not an easy way to start, but I like it. I like the tougher start because it certainly will get the team focused, right? Like if you have Cleveland to start the season at home, maybe a different level of intensity for training camp and for getting prepared for that week 1. When that week 1 opponent is the same opponent that knocked you out of last year's playoff run, and let's not forget much of this team is the same. I think there's going to be some added motivation knowing that Buffalo is the team on the schedule. So, would have maybe preferred to see a home game to start the season, but man, I'm for it. Let's go up to Buffalo. Get some revenge. Of course, it doesn't really truly matter, what happens in a week 1 matchup in comparison to what happened last division round when Buffalo was able to win. But at least sets the tone for the season, right? Kind of get it kicked off on the right foot if you were able to come out of Buffalo with a win against a really good Buffalo team. But that's not all it does. These week 1 games are just as important as any in the season. And if you want to be the number 1 seed and not have to go, or not even just the number 1 seed, if you want to be a higher seed than the Buffalo Bills and not have to go to Buffalo for the division round matchup like you did last season, maybe have that game at home, who knows? Maybe the result is different if that's in the friendly confines of M&T Bank Stadium. So at the very least, if you're able to come out with a win, you get a tiebreaker and you get a game up on a potential rival who's also competing for the number 1 seed, but also just home playoff games in general in January. So, yeah, what a way to get started. Let's go to Buffalo. Let's get the dub. Next game, Cleveland, week 2 at home. First home opener, 1 o'clock. The thing about Cleveland is it's like, look, I don't look at Cleveland as a team that's going to be competing for championships anytime soon. I still think they have to fix the quarterback position, and they right now have probably the most convoluted quarterback room in all of football. Joe Flacco, I think, was named as the presumed starter, but of course they drafted Dylan Gabriel in, I believe, the 3rd round, and then Shadur Sanders in the 5th round. How many guys are on their how many quarterbacks are on their roster right now? I know they have Kenny. I think they have Kenny Pickett as well. If my memory serves me, I don't have the roster in front of me, but they got quite a crowded room, and they certainly going to have to get this stuff figured out in training camp, find out if Joe is in fact their starter or if they want to go with one of the young guys and kind of how that looks. Apparently heads are being turned by Shadur early on, but we all know that rookie minicamp is a big difference than training camp and preseason. So You don't want to play a bad. I look at this as I shouldn't say a bad team, but this team isn't competing to go anywhere. But every team in week 2, unless you have some catastrophic string of injuries, every team by week 2 still feels very much so involved. Still feels like they can. They have everything in front of them, right? So the motivation level will certainly be there. Every player's individual goals will still be very much so ahead of them. So even individually, you'll see a more motivated group of players than you would, potentially if you play this team when they're already out of it in week 16 and maybe guys are not playing through, bumps and bruises. Nah, this is going to be a relatively healthy team with everything in front of them. And Cleveland always gives us problems, right? So that's certainly not going to be a gimme game. That team will be motivated to come beat their probably most hated rival. I think Cleveland looks at the Ravens as their most hated rival since their former team did come here, although they got their team right back and kept their same colors, record books, all that. They still look at us, I believe, as their most bitter rival. We don't look at them that way, kind of like the Orioles and Yankees. Where the Orioles may look at the Yankees as their rival, but it's certainly not in the other direction. But not going to be an easy game. So 2 games that, of course, every game is winnable, but 2 games that I think are losable as well. Of course, Buffalo, the much more challenging, but let's not forget recent history against the Cleveland Browns. And then you have Detroit, Monday night game. Man, I think me and Jimmy predicted that this would be a primetime game. No surprise, right? 2 really good teams. Detroit kind of exploded last year and was the darling of the NFC. Everybody wanted to see Detroit maybe finally get over the hump. Ultimately fell short in the playoffs and had some injuries down the stretch that certainly didn't help. But, man, this is going to be one exciting matchup. If you could only go to one game, this might be the one game you could kind of circle on the schedule as one you want to go to. Monday night game, any night game in Baltimore is going to be an absolute blast, but then you're playing a Detroit team that's one of the very best, definitely one of the teams competing for championship. No doubt about it. They got a great coach. They got a great young core. They're fast. I mean, they're a tough team. Now, they lost their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, to the Bears, who many thought was one of the very brightest young offensive minds in football. So we'll have to kind of see how that looks offensively. If Jared Goff's able to still put up those kind of caliber seasons where I think he was like 5th, or he was up there when it comes to MVP voting. He had a hell of a season. So what does that loss of Ben Johnson do to that offense that still has a bunch of studs? But you just don't know how much of it was Ben Johnson, how much of it was the players. Obviously, the Bears think a lot of it was Ben Johnson. But Detroit, that's going to be a tough one. Another game. I mean, look, Detroit, last time they came to Baltimore, the Ravens painted their back porch red. And then the last time we were in Detroit, I believe, was when Justin Tucker hit the field goal. And I believe that was the last time. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this game pans out. But in recent history, the Ravens, and really probably all of history, the Ravens have had their number. But it's Detroit. They only recently have had success, and most teams have had their number for the most part. And then, boom, doesn't get any easier. You come off the heels of a Monday night game, and now you got to go at Kansas City. And, man, these first 4 weeks, man, you talk about certainly 3. If you had to rank what teams are competing for championships, I think you'd have Buffalo, Detroit, and Kansas City as 3 of those, the very top teams on that list. Like that, you're not talking top 10. You're talking higher than that for all 3 of those teams as far as their chances of getting where every team wants to go. And then Cleveland, we know the difficulties there. But getting back to Kansas City, I mean, man, I know they have a tough schedule too, which, they got a tough one too. So this isn't going to be easy for Kansas City having to come to Baltimore in the middle or in the very early parts of their schedule. If you take a peek at theirs, they got a tough road to hoe too. So, but Kansas City, maybe the loudest stadium in football, them, Seattle. I like to say Baltimore's up in that. But there's no doubt that Kansas City is one of the very best home crowds in all of football. Obviously going to have to use the silent count if you're Lamar on that day. But another game where, look, you're competing for potential number 1 seed. You're certainly competing for, who's going to be the home team in a potential playoff matchup. So you don't want to come out of that game, even though it's a road game, you certainly don't want to just expect that to be a loss. Now, it's going to be a tough matchup. Going to Kansas City isn't easy. Playing against that team with that quarterback and head coach, that's going to be tough. But if you could come out of Buffalo and come out of Kansas City with a win, just think of the leg up you have for tiebreakers, your AFC record, which is an eventual tiebreaker outside of head-to-heads, division record, all that stuff. Man, you're really getting a leg up early. Through 4 weeks, you already have a win over probably the top 2 competing teams in the AFC, Buffalo and Kansas City. So you got to feel good if you come out of that 2-0. Now, if you come out of that 0-2, oof. Now you got to have a game lead over those guys, because if it comes down to a tiebreaker head-to-head, they have the advantage. And we know how important home games are in the playoffs, especially when you're talking about those 2 teams, Kansas City and the home crowd, the cold weather. Same with Buffalo. Really rather have those games in Baltimore. So tough matchups through 4. And man, I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot easier. You talk about October 5th at home against the Houston Texans, another playoff team from just last season. Now, anybody who remembers, Houston hasn't fared well against the Ravens as of lately, right? Like they've taken a butt whooping from the Ravens the last couple times they've played each other. Let's see. Looking now, last time we played them was week 17 last year on Christmas. I mean, 31-2. 31-2. A complete shellacking, an embarrassment for the Houston Texans. So if you don't think you're going to get a motivated Houston Texans team ready to kind of, we talked about the revenge of going to Buffalo. Well, I think you're going to see a motivated Houston Texans team that wants some revenge as well, just the same as the Ravens against Buffalo. So boom, you got another tough matchup through 5 weeks, man. You got Buffalo at Buffalo, you got at home against Detroit, at Kansas City, and then at home against the Texans. And then follow that, my gosh, another home game, this time against the LA Rams, who last time, again, we played them, went to an overtime thriller, which I believe was the walk-off Tylan Wallace punt return touchdown. So another, again, really good team. I mean, that team absolutely reloaded. Let's not forget they lost Cooper Kupp to the Seattle Seahawks, but they replaced him with Devontae Adams. So now you have Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua on the outside for Matthew Stafford to throw the ball to. And we know the talented offensive mind leading that team and Sean McVay. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be another very well-coached team, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, or at the very least thinks that they can, even though they may be more under the radar than some of the other teams we played earlier. Nobody wants to play the Rams when it matters most. They are a very well-coached team. They got talent all over the place. They have a Super Bowl quarterback in Matthew Stafford. This is that's a tough first 6 weeks, folks. I mean, really, Cleveland's the only team you can look at and we know how Cleveland is when it comes to Baltimore. It's no easy task. So that's pretty crazy. Appreciate Cakes Mitchell. I believe it's Cakes Mitchell. Cakes and Meatball says if we win 3 of the first 4, we are going to be scared. Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Extend that to the first 6. If you can come out of that with a winning record, 4-2 would be phenomenal. I mean, anything better than that would be unbelievable. But on the converse side of that, you could, let's not forget that the Ravens didn't start hot last year. They lost their first 2 games, including a home game against the Raiders, who were terrible last season. So, yeah, I mean, it would be great. They come out of that on the winning side of things. That would be a fantastic start when that is definitely the toughest stretch of their season. Not to say there's not other tough stretches, which we're going to get to, especially the 3 away games in a row. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another team that has a tougher 6-game start to their season than the Ravens. But the good news is if they come out on the winning side of that, then that's certainly in their advantage. And I guess the question is, where would you prefer your toughest, if you had this 6-game tough stretch, where would you want it to be? Would you want it to be the middle of the season, the beginning like it is, or at the end of the season? And I certainly see positives and negatives in either direction. I appreciate the super chat, Cakes. And thanks for showing up. Appreciate you. But man, I'm kind of torn on it because I look at the Ravens as being generally. Now, I did say that they lost their first 2 games last year, but generally, I think this is a team that is prepared at the start of a season. I think John does a pretty good job of it. And I think a matchup with the Buffalo Bills will help make that job a little easier because the motivation will naturally be there for any of the players that were on the team last season, which, again, a lot of the same players are here. So I'm not necessarily like, oh, I'm nervous about this being in the first to start the season. I don't know if I'd really rather it be later, but I understand it because, you want to be hitting on all cylinders when you're playing these good teams. So later on in the season, ideally you're playing your better football, right? But there's also potential for injuries at that point. They're going to be playing better football if you use that same line of logic. So I'm okay with it being early. I really am. Now, I'd rather honestly play Cleveland later. I don't like playing bad teams early because I think they're still motivated like good teams. I'd rather play them when they know they're out of it and they're already packing their bags for vacation. But man, there's no doubt that's going to be a tough way to start your season. 6 games against 5 playoff teams from just last season and Cleveland, who beat us last year. That ain't going to be easy, but at least you have the bye week, week 7. It's a pretty decent time. It's a little early. I think that's fair to say. It's a little bit early, but coming off that 6-game stretch, it may be just what the doctor ordered. And then honestly, coming out of that bye week, you got a favorable opponent. You're coming out of that bye week with a home game, which is ideal. And that will be your 3rd consecutive home game with a bye week in there. So that's a time where, you got to take advantage of your schedule. Even though those are 2 tough opponents to start in Houston and LA, they are home games. It's a long trip for LA to come all the way from coast to coast. And you got to hopefully take advantage of that. And then coming out of a bye week against a home game against Chicago, you got to beat them. You just have to. And that's one of the teams that's probably changed the most in the offseason. Chicago did a lot to kind of revamp that roster, to build around Caleb Williams, a quarterback that they appear to be all in on, and it makes sense. I mean, they just drafted him just last season with that in mind, and they build a wall in front of them. They add to their offensive line. They have weapons galore on the outside. So there's really not a lot of excuses. They get, of course, Ben Johnson, I mentioned earlier, from Detroit. So there's really not a lot of excuses for Caleb Williams. But in this game, he's got a couple, right? He's going to go on the road against a Ravens defense that's going to be presumably relatively healthy coming out of a week 7 bye. And we know the John Harbaugh's record coming out of a bye week, especially against young quarterbacks. Albeit, Caleb Williams does have some starting experience, of course, not a rookie, but still a young quarterback. And I'm sure he's going to see some things he probably hasn't seen before when he plays us. So that's a good way to come off of a bye week with a very winnable game against the Bears at home. And then, man, you talk about a perfect Thursday night game. You're going at Miami. I'm confident in saying there's probably going to be more Ravens fans in the stands than there will be Dolphins fans. And while, look, they have talented players, they still probably have the fastest overall offense in football when you combine the speed that they have with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, and then their running backs. I mean, Achane, and I think they lost Raheem Mostert, if I remember correctly, but when he was there, obviously one of the very fastest players, but they still got speed. They got talent, but the questions obviously are going to be around who's going to be at quarterback for them. Is Tua going to be healthy? We know his battle with concussions, and we know how that's affected his career. And, some have suggested he should retire because of the amount he's already received. So, Miami, I don't know what they're going to look like in week 9. That's kind of tough to say. They could still be in it if they have a good start to their season, and we could see a motivated group. That's scary. If we see a group that's starting to, already has a losing record, maybe their quarterback's not, it could be an easier game than anticipated. But again, that's still a talented roster. But I look at that home game as probably away game as probably the most similar to a home game as you can imagine a road game being. We got a lot of Florida guys on this team that are super popular, and I expect us to combat their fan base with ours and almost do so equally. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 50-50 split in that stadium. as crazy as that sounds. But this is the first of other 3-game stretch, and that's one thing I always look at when I'm looking at a schedule. Is there 3 consecutive road games? Because that travel can wear on a team. There's just no doubt about it. It can take a toll. So they go from Miami to a Sunday 4 o'clock game. I'm sorry, Sunday 1 o'clock game at Minnesota. A Minnesota team that, again, they're transitioning to J.J. McCarthy, a second-year quarterback, lost his rookie year due to injury. They had a fantastic year from Sam Darnold, kind of resurrected his career. He gets a bunch of money, goes elsewhere. But they still got some guys. I mean, obviously Jay Jettas, Justin Jefferson is their stud, their star. He's almost quarterback proof. It doesn't seem to matter who's quarterback on that team. He gets his. He goes over 100 catches. He goes, he's pushing 1,800 yard, 2,000. Like he's that good. He's that guy, that kind of guy. And that defense also, I believe, last year led the league in turnovers. So a talented team, a team that's certain and well coached. I mean, you talk about young, respected coaches. Minnesota might have the top guy. What's his name? I see his face. Can't think of his name, but talented, young offensive mind, former quarterback, and seems to get the most out of quarterbacks when they are on his team. You saw that last year with Darn. So we'll see what J.J. McCarthy's got, but again, that's the second of 3 consecutive road games. Not going to be easy. And then they finish that with they finished the road trip with a trip to Cleveland to take on the Browns November the 16th at 4:20. At this point, I don't think the Browns will be playing for like playoff chances. I think they'll be playing more for spoiler. But we've seen the Browns team that's only playing for spoiler still give us one hell of a matchup. So that's in Cleveland. That's not going to be an easy game. It'll be curious to see who's the quarterback in that game. Is it a different person than it was at quarterback in week 2? That could very well be the case, especially if they're out of it. No sense trotting Joe Flacco out there if the game or if the season is already lost. You want to get one of the young guys in to at least see what you got. See if Dylan Gabriel's the guy or Shedeur Sanders is the guy. But either way, no matter who's at quarterback, it's not going to be easy when you're playing the Browns. They're a division rival. I mean, they're certainly third on the list when it comes to the Ravens for rivals. Steelers being first, Bengals second, and then the Browns. But again, they don't look at us that way. We're the number 1, and then the Steelers, and then the Bengals. So they're going to give us everything they got, even if all they're playing is spoiler role and there's no playoff hopes. Then you come back home to the friendly confines of a New York Jets home game. And if anyone's been following the Jets, they're an absolute disaster. That doesn't look like they're turning the corner this year. They're kind of hitching their wagon to Justin Fields, who, man, it's funny because when he came out, I was a big Justin Fields guy. I thought he kind of didn't get a fair shake. And even last year, I don't think he kind of got a fair shake when it comes to the Steelers benching him for Russell Wilson, even though, the team was playing pretty well. And of course they had some initial success with Russell, but then by the end of the season, we saw what we all expected to see. And they weren't a very good team, and Russell Wilson wasn't a very good quarterback. But maybe in New York, I mean, I think it's hard to imagine him having a major career revival with that offensive line, with the pressure that New York brings, and with the owner, Woody Johnson, who just appears to be maybe the worst in all of football. He's certainly competing to be the worst with others like Haslam from the Browns and the Jaguars. What's his name? I can't remember his name, but you guys in the chat, I'm sure know. Yeah. New York, to me, that should be an easy win. Not an easy win, but it's a game. You better win that game at home against New York. You got to win that game. And then here we see the first of our real true division rivalry games. I mean, Cleveland to some degree, but again, Cleveland's not competing. Cincinnati is very much so competing, albeit only on one side. They give all their cap space to really their offensive weaponry, and are you going to have to use the draft and hit on in a big way to build up the defensive side of the ball, giving about a third of their cap space to 3 guys. But look, we know Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they're going to absolutely put stress on even the very best defenses. I mean, Joe Burrow threw for like 950 yards against us in 2 games last year and lost both games. Jamar Chase went absolutely nuclear last year. It was really tough to watch as a Ravens fan, watch us just get scored on left and right. But at the end of the day, they were 2 wins by the Ravens, 41-38 and 35-34. So while I certainly understand that they're an explosive offense, they can score with the best of them, I do also know that so are we, right? Baltimore's a pretty damn good offense. I think the best offense in football. And I do think that even with the disappointing Darius Washington injury, I still think this defense is going to be better than we saw certainly in the start of the season last year. But I think it'll even be better than we saw towards the end of the season when they had a huge turnaround. I think Mike Green will be a big part of that, especially towards the end of the season, like in week 13, like we're talking about now. I think Mike Green's going to be a huge part of that, and Malachi Starks as well. So, man, that's going to be a tough game, though. Thursday game. It seems like we always play the Bengals on Thursday games. And if you can, by the way, if you can't make it to that Detroit game, I highly recommend going to that Cincinnati Thursday game. It's going to be an absolute blast. Any night game in Baltimore is really fun, but especially one with the stakes of an AFC North game. And look, if you want to win your division, which is step one for every team in the NFL, win your division, get into the dance, right? See what happens. Well, you got to win your home division games. You have to. I mean, you'd like to, maybe split your road games as far, you have 3 road games in the AFC North. Like to maybe win 1 or 2 of those, but you want to win all your home AFC North games. And this is the first of the biggest ones because, again, you're competing truly with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh for this division. Unless something crazy happens with the quarterback position in Cleveland. So you got to win this game if you want to win the division. And really, as you can see here, we're going to talk about they play the Bengals and the Steelers 4 times out of the last 6 weeks. And they play them back to back to back. So if you're going to lose any of these games, you can't lose this one. You cannot lose the Week 13 matchup against the Bengals, knowing what you have on the horizon. And speaking of that, what you do is December 7th, Sunday. Now, this is coming off of a 10-day rest, so that's a bit of an advantage in the Ravens' direction. They're at home against Cincy. They have a 10-day break, and then at home against Pittsburgh. It's a tough spot for Pittsburgh to be first playing the Ravens because at this point, what is you talk about quarterback position in Cleveland. What the hell is going to be the quarterback position in Week 14 for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Nobody knows. Nobody. Mason Rudolph? Like, does anyone think Aaron Rodgers is still going to be upright and participating by Week 14? I would be absolutely stunned if he's playing, much less, a threat. In the world, my watch is talking to me. Just startled me. Oh, here we go. We got some. Let me get back to the chats here. Man, I love it. All of a sudden, my computer must have been behind. I had 1, and then all of a sudden it just all caught up. So what's going on, Nut Nasty? What's going on, Austin? Dylan, appreciate you guys coming out. The Chef, 87, appreciate you. Good afternoon to you as well. Let's see. King Blaze coming out. What's up, Glenn? Yeah, appreciate you coming out, King. T Shizzle, People's Champ. You got it. You already know. Iron sharpens iron, says Michael Banner. Yeah, I mean, doesn't seem like every year the Ravens have a tough schedule. I mean, every year. We're used to this. Battle hardened. Jacob says more than 13 wins. I mean, look, we're going to get into our way too early record predictions on Tuesday, and I can't wait to do it. Ravens fan, let's see. Our notorious Ravens fans can't say Ravens can't start slow. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to start slow with this 6-game stretch to start. Let's see here. Man, I was way behind on the comments. Man, I don't know what's going on with this computer. It took so long, but I appreciate you guys. James says, what's going on, People's Champ? Just living the dream. Living the dream, talking Ravens football. How much better can it get? All right, let's get into it. So you got Cincinnati at home. Then you got Pittsburgh at home, albeit a Pittsburgh team that, again, we don't know what their condition at quarterback will be. DK is going to be throwing a temper tantrum. He's going to be pissed off. He's going to go, why the hell did I agree to sign a deal here? But that's still Pittsburgh. They're still going to love to beat the Ravens if they can. And it's still going to be a good defense. So even though we question what the offense is going to look like, I don't think it's going to be an easy game, but it's a game you better win, in my opinion. And then right after that, you go at Cincinnati for a 1 o'clock matchup against the Bengals. So again, it's Cincy, Pittsburgh, Cincy. Kind of reminds me a couple years ago when we had the Browns, the Steelers, and then the Browns. And remember, on the Browns schedule, it was the Ravens, bye week Ravens, which is just the most, I mean, you talk about just a shaft that the Ravens got. I mean, that was the most ridiculous schedule that I've ever seen, where you give a division opponent back-to-back games, but with a bye week in between, and the Ravens had to play the Steelers in between. We know the bloodbath that always is. So this is similar to that, though. Cincinnati gets to play us, and they can, play a physical matchup on that Thursday night. Now, we do get 10 days to rest, but then Pittsburgh, that's going to be a physical game, even if they're not competing for playoff positioning. But you got to win that game. And then Cincinnati gets us after a Pittsburgh matchup, and we have to go to Cincinnati. So if you're going to lose a game in that stretch, it's probably going to be that Sunday night game again on the 14th, unless, it's still the Ravens, right? Like it's going to be a tough game. But if you're going to lose one of them, that's the one I think the Ravens would want. If they could pick one to lose, that's the one you want to lose, because it's a road game, and you already beat them once, hopefully, and you just came off of a win against the Steelers, if things kind of go as planned. And then New England, again, at this point, kind of wonder what motivation they'll have. What will guys be playing through those bumps and bruises if there's no playoffs hopes? Now, they could. I think they got a huge upgraded head coach. I think they obviously upgraded their roster. They believe that they have a quarterback in oh my gosh, I'm like blanking on his name right now. Rookie last year. Help me out here, DK. Rookie quarterback for the Patriots last year. Drake May. Thank you. Look at that. I was able to see this tiny window. He's still Drake May. Yeah, they believe in. Appreciate you, Rush. Congrats on the 14 years. Thank you. But yeah, Drake May could end up being a guy. I don't think we really had a chance to see that last year because they just didn't have the roster around him. Their receiving core was probably the worst in football last year, and really their pass catching group in general. Although tight end, they're not really terrible. I think, is Hunter Henry still there, if I remember correctly? But look, I think they're going to be better than last season. Certainly on the defensive side of the ball, where Mike Vrabel will probably feel the biggest impact from him. So we'll wait and see. But I think that's certainly a winnable game against a team who will likely not be competing at this point for playoffs, unless, again, Drake May is the next coming of Tom Brady and takes off, even with, again, not the best weaponry. I know they got Stephon Diggs, but I don't know how much is left in that tank. And then, man, they got a tough way to end the season. So they got back-to-back road games to end the season. And we were just talking about this. Man, when are we playing Green Bay? That'd be a perfect game to scratch off the bucket list, go to Lambeau. And who doesn't, what sports fan, specifically NFL fan, doesn't want to at least spend one game in Lambeau? I think you kind of have to if you're a true diehard. And I would love to go there. I don't know if I want to go there on right around Christmas. It's going to be so freaking cold. They could have played them like at any time. Why in the world they have to play them right around New Year's? It's going to be so cold. I mean, it's going to be so cold. And even though the Ravens are technically kind of a mixture of both warm and cold weather, right? In the early part of the season, it's pretty hot in that stadium. But it gets pretty damn cold in Baltimore, too. And I think DK went to the coldest game in Baltimore, in fact. So he can attest to that. It gets pretty freaking cold in Baltimore. But I still don't necessarily look at this team as a bunch of guys who embrace and love the cold weather. I think our style of play certainly lends itself to good to play well in cold weather because we're a run-first team who actually bludgeon you with a 250-pound running back. And then you have to deal with all the other the speed we have on the roster as well. But I also recognize that we have a lot of Florida guys, just like I was talking about earlier, why I think Miami will be, large part Ravens fans represented in the stands. I don't know if they're the biggest fans of super cold weather. And I don't think you're going to find a much colder game in week 17 than at Green Bay. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that it's not the ice bowl. It's not negative something. It's not snowing. Let's hope for one sunny day in Green Bay in week 17, because that's another really good team. I mean, Jacobs goes to their team last year and has an absolute monstrous season. He was one of those running backs that changed teams and really just said, hey, you guys think running backs aren't important? They're not valuable? Look what Saquon did in his first year. Look what Derrick Henry did, and look what Josh Jacobs did in his first year with Green Bay. He was an absolute stud. I had him on my fantasy team, so I certainly know firsthand how good that guy was. And then Jordan Love, another guy who slow start to the seasons typically, but then always ends the season well. Like if you look at the top passer rating guys over the last 6 weeks, the last couple years, it's Jordan Love. If not first, he's right up there. Now they've had some injury issues to the wide receiver, but then they went and replaced them in the draft. So I think this is a team that has a lot of young talent. Remember when they beat Dallas a couple seasons ago, they were, I believe, the youngest team to make the playoffs, and then they beat Dallas in Dallas. So this is a young, up-and-coming, talented football team with, a young, up-and-coming, super smart head coach in LaFleur, who is off the McVay tree and is this offensive genius. And to this point, he's been pretty successful. Now, injuries have sidetracked their seasons lately, but if they're healthy, that's going to be a hell of a tough matchup at Green Bay. And then you come off of that with your final game this season, which seems to be the inaugural. Like, isn't this like a thing where it's every year we're playing the damn Steelers in the final week of the season? I mean, I'm not that mad about it because I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be competing for much at this point, but it's still a road game in Pittsburgh. The fans are going to be wanting to see an upset, even if it, again, is just for upset purposes, just to be a spoiler and maybe knock the Ravens out of the number 1 seed or knock the Ravens down a notch where they may have to, again, go to Buffalo, go to Kansas City, go on the road in the division round or at the very least the AFC Championship round. Pittsburgh, that's all the motivation they need, especially those veterans who have been there for a long time, who know what this rivalry is all about. Man, I don't like ending the season on back-to-back road games. Not a fan of that. Now, if we can then turn around and have a home playoff game after that, then makes it a little better. But what if not? What if they don't? What if they have to go on the road again to start the playoffs? So now you're talking 3 consecutive road games. And if that trend continues throughout the playoffs, then essentially their playoffs started in week 17 and they've all been on the road. So, man, it could be a tough stretch. But I mean, I look at it like every year the Ravens have one of the very toughest schedules. Every year they are forced to, prove if they're, they kind of have to get battle tested throughout the regular season. And they always come out. I mean, let's just look what they've done lately. They always come out on top. We talk about stretches. We go, oh, man, if they can come out 2-2 on that stretch. And what do? They typically come out 3-1 or 4-0. It just is what it is. Now, I don't want to see a slow start, but if you're telling me a slow start will lead to, ultimately a final good record and a playoff berth, okay. I mean, I'd rather you have a slow start and a strong finish than a strong start and a slow finish. I don't really necessarily want you stumbling into the playoffs, although our last Super Bowl was a bit of a stumble into the playoffs. So the Ravens have done it both ways, but man, the way I look at it, you probably won't find a tougher start in all of football, but take advantage of it, Ravens. And I think John will use this as motivation for the team. Like, hey, we got to be good quick. We can't be slow out the gate. We can't find ourselves, figure out our identity for 6 weeks. Not if you want to be the number 1 seed. Now, you could do that and stumble a little bit and still make the playoffs, certainly. But if you want to be the number 1 seed and get the only bye week that's given out on the AFC side, then you got to start strong. You got to have a good middle and you got to end strong, because Buffalo, Kansas City, and I mean, I'll even throw Cincinnati in there because we know the firepower that they have. And they do have a new defensive coordinator. They did get rid of Lou, you know what I'm talking about. So they could have a bounce back, but I'm okay with this being a tough start. I'm okay with it. I'm actually more disappointed that they have to go back to back on the road to end the season, and 3 in a row in the middle on the road. Now, I do recognize that if you're going to have a stretch where you play 3 division games in a row, I like the fact that you're talking about 3 home games in 4 weeks, but that ain't easy. And here's the fingers crossed that Cincinnati's already stumbled and Pittsburgh is out of it and makes those games easier. But if not, if both those teams are still competing, that's going to be a tough way to end the season too. So, man, this is an exciting game. Let's see, our exciting schedule release. Let's see, they get 4 night games. Let's see, they get the Sunday night. They get Monday night against Detroit. I guess if you want to count the Thursday game, but every team gets that one. But that's another primetime game. I bet this 4:25 game at Kansas City will be a national televised game. And then, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if one of these two is going to be. And then, of course, they have the Thursday game. Well, I guess I should count this because it is Thanksgiving, right? I shouldn't count that as just any Thursday night game. They are playing on Thanksgiving. And then I don't think players are thrilled about that, right? Like if I was a player, I probably wouldn't love it. Well, I guess I'd like it if I was like young and didn't have a family. I'd be like, yeah, I want everyone watching. Everyone in the world is watching on Thursday, watching me play. I'd probably like that. But if I had a family, I'd probably rather not have to play on Thanksgiving and spend time with my family on that day. But oh my God, what's going on in chat right here? Oh man, what is going? Who is this? Marcus stirring everything up around here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Marcus, but apparently he's getting everybody fired up. Oh, Lions? He's a Lions fan? Okay. Oh, man, to be a Lions fan. Hey, look, let him feel happiness. When's the last time a Lions fan has felt any happiness, guys? Let him get excited. If he thinks they're going to win 14, let him get excited. I mean, have they ever had a thing to be cheer about? Ever? I don't think so. So, hey, be excited about this. Is always the Lions fans' time right now. The season hasn't started. There's hope. But we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. Every time we play Lions, we paint their back porch, okay? We paint it red. They're not ready for the big boys. They're still them. Let's see. My boy Rotla says, I'm mad about the Bengals game. I typically like to go to that one, but probably can't make it this year since it's on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, that Thursday night game is always fun, and it seems like we have one every season. But it is what it is. If you're going to go, I've been to a Thanksgiving game. It was an absolute blast. I went to, what was it, the Niners game many years ago. We played them. I think we had like 8 sacks. It was an absolute beatdown. I loved every second of it. But look, guys, let me know what you guys think. What's your take on this schedule? Do you think it was favorable for the Ravens, unfair for the Ravens? What do you think about the Week 7 bye week? Is that too early for you? What's your thoughts on the ending the season on back-to-back road games, having this stretch of 3 consecutive division rivals starting in Week 13, and then playing that many division games in the last 6 weeks is pretty insane as well. Let me know all in the thoughts below. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and we will talk soon. See you.